Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel, and today's little video is a beginner into drawing. I understand that a lot of people out there, there's a lot of different products out there, a lot of different pencils, different kinds of things that you can do with them, and the beginner just may not know where to start. Well, to begin with, there are all kinds of little kits out there that you can begin with that have a wide variety of everything that you just about need. And you can also just go to a place like Staples and pick up a pencil and an eraser, sharpener, and you're really pretty much good. The important thing is to practice, 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 and if you enjoy doing it, then the more fun you're going to have. So to just explain kind of some of the basics of drawing, we have one of the kits that I happen to have around my house. I also have this kit here. This is pretty much full of everything that I have been collecting since middle school. So you can see these supplies last a very long time. It's one of the most appealing things about drawing is you can just about pick up anybody's pencil and walk away with it and go make art. It's also very fun and portable. So what we got here for everybody to see, we have your typical eraser. A lot of people out there think that this is really the only form an eraser comes in, but in fact there is also the putty eraser. I have this guy, and I also have this very big gelatinous mass over here. They take a little bit of time. You need to warm them up. The more you mess with them, the more oils from your hands get into these, the softer they will get, and easier and more pliable as you go on. And then we also have the typical little pencil eraser, and if anybody who's ever bought an art pencil before, they don't come with erasers on the end. I could not exactly tell you why that is, but I mean, you would be erasing a lot, and that little nubbin's not going to last you too terribly long. One thing to keep in mind, always test out any eraser that you buy like this, the typical rubbery kind, because not every eraser actually erases. Some of them end up smearing whatever you're doing all over the paper, and then you can't erase it. There is no getting rid of it. It's like you just put a big stain all over your page. Some of them that have color in them will leave that color behind after you've gotten done erasing, so that's not always typically very good. So whatever eraser you end up buying that is very typical, what you think of as a eraser, always test it out before you use it on your piece. It may not give you what results you actually want. I do like keeping these guys around because they typically come with edges. I don't use them nearly as much anymore, but I do find them very nice and to have in my little toolkit just for ease purposes. Just, okay, grab it, go, done. Now this guy, the putty eraser, at least that's what I call them, they're very, very useful. They can do just about everything. Yeah, it may be putty-like, but you can squish it into a nice little point, so that way you can get those teeny tiny areas and erase where you need to erase. And the fun thing about this guy, hopefully you can see that, is that when you have a piece that you've been working on, this is just a mess, but you have a piece that you've been working on and maybe you got an area just a little bit too dark. All you have to do is go in with this guy, and all I'm doing is just pushing down with him. I'm not racing, I'm not rubbing, and he will lighten that up shade by shade for you. And that's one of the biggest benefits, I think, with the putty eraser, and everybody should have one. They are just awesome, awesome, awesome tools. So, now that we got the erasers figured out and what is out there, pencil sharpeners. Yeah, you can get fancy pencil sharpeners out there that'll do it all for you. I personally don't like those because these things do cost money. Pencils cost money. And being able to actually control how much that pencil sharpener is actually taking off, and being able to control the point yourself how fine you are getting the point on the end of the pencil. Very, very useful. So I like these guys, and obviously, you know, sharpeners come in a huge variety. Not a whole lot to go with that. It's nice to have a little container if you don't have a trash bag right next to you in order to, you know, get rid of all those little nasty shavings. And that's one of the other things about erasers too. When you're erasing, you'll get little bits of eraser left over. With putty eraser, you don't have to worry about that. If you do get little bits left over, well, you just putty them inside and they congeal with the rest of the mass there. Next thing we are going to cover is the shader. Now, I like at least having 2 shaders around with whatever kit I happen to be messing with at the time. One shader will be for colors, your siennas, your darker umbers, and then the other one will be for my blacks and my charcoals. Now, the reasoning for that is if I am using my shader for shading in my color areas, my siennas, my umbers, and then all of a sudden I go to my black and white drawing and I start shading on that, well, I just got color in a picture that I've intended to have as black and white. So having these two separated is really nice. And also choosing an end that is the dark end for your charcoals, which a lot lighter lead, which it gets everywhere. And then the other end for your harder leads. Distinguishing between the two is also very nice because you get the exact same issue. You're using the shader to shade in, and then all of a sudden, whoops, you just shaded in something way, way darker because of all the stuff that it's picked up from the charcoal. You're in a light area, and it leaves behind a big old dark black streak, and you just didn't want it there. More work for you in the long run. A way to kind of clean these guys off, I kind of like to do it. Not everybody probably does. But I like to roll him in my eraser whenever I am done between sessions, just to reduce the risk. Obviously, it doesn't look like too much is coming off of it. It just helps reduce the risk of me accidentally going in and, oh, well, there's too much lead in that, now I gotta go fix it again. So, shaders are great, and they are awesome little tools. The problem is, most beginners end up using these guys as a crutch. A lot of people, they will start with these guys and like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to shade everything. And, well, now it all ends up becoming this one color or this one particular hue shade of gray over the entire picture. You don't have any darks, you don't have any bright whites anymore. Well, that's, you know, that's overusing your shader. Not everything needs to be shaded. Sometimes the beauty of your lines is the best thing in the world. So it's a tool. Don't rely on it to the point where it becomes a crutch. It's just a nice little thing to have. Experiment with other ways of shading other than using that guy. So now we are going to move on to our pencils here. Now it's pretty easy. This guy, he is our red chalk. A little bit darker, and then a little darker. That might look black, but that's actually a nice deep brown color. There we go. These guys are pretty self-explanatory. You're doing a picture and you don't want it to be just black and white, so you add some colors in there. They're also white. A lot of people use these on your gray papers and different colored papers as opposed to white, so that way they get different kinds of variety going on with their pictures. There's not too much terribly to explain about those. Those are just for a lot of fun, giving yourself variety, giving yourself a change. It does pretty much feel like you're playing with a charcoal. They're very soft. You can also use colored pencils as well. But you don't typically see colored pencils in a set. Now we're going to move on to your regular graphite pencil. Now, with your graphite pencils, you will often see people say, oh, well, you need a 2B, you need an HB. Well, what does that mean? Your HB is your middle of the road pencil. So let's say this line is our HB pencil here. All right, well now, our next pencil going in that direction. This will be the light. And then we got dark going that way. Whee! There we go. Dyslexia. It's fun. So this is our HB pencil. It is right in the middle of the road for all the other pencils. This is the hardness of the lead. And from there, yep, and this is a 4B. I do believe there is a 2B as well. And he will make a darker line with the same amount of effort put into making that line. And then you have your 6B here. And he makes a much darker line. And you also feel they start getting softer the more they go up the B scale. And there's like B9, B, I mean, they get pretty crazy as the numbers go higher. Now, I don't have any, oh, hey, right on top here. Sweet. This guy, no, that's a B. But from there on, going up the light scale, we'll just use this guy as a representative. As you're going up this scale, H, you're going to get H2, which is going to make a lighter line with the same amount of effort. And then you get an H4, and then an H6. You are going to be pushing as hard as you can, and you're going to be making divots into that paper, trying to make a mark. Oh my God, it's going to be very difficult. It makes a very light line because the lead that is in it is very, very hard. So that is your spectrum of what H's and B's are. Now moving on to the next bit, all beginner drawing students, keep in mind and keep an eye on yourself. Only you can police yourself. The reasoning behind this scale is so that way you are not sitting there and pushing and trying to make darker and darker marks as you go and trying to... One, you're going to get into a bad habit of always drawing too dark. Now, if I tried to erase this because I messed up, I am out of luck because that's not going to erase. It's pushed into the paper. It's never going to really come out. That's why you always got to draw light. So keep a close eye on what you're doing, because the darker you draw, and it's a very, very bad habit, less likely you're going to be able to erase it, and then you might even just have to start the whole drawing over again. And it's very frustrating when you get to the very end of your drawing, and a pain in the butt. So now we will move on to the negro. It's kind of pretty much, from my understanding, a negro is like a step between your graphite and your charcoals. So he just makes a nice darker line with very minimal effort. Makes the world go round, makes everything so nice. Going at it in different directions. Whee! And if you do push down on it, you can see the difference between the two here. At least I hope you can. So you have, maybe you can see it a little bit. You can see that the regular pencil mark is a lot shinier than the negro is when I've pushed down. That's something to keep in mind when you're doing your drawings as well. If you're doing a very dark area, you don't want to use your regular pencils for that, because you're going to end up with a very shiny picture. And nobody wants a shiny picture. And plus you can see where all the pencil marks were when you were trying to make it nice and dark. It's not very fun. And a lot of work down the drain. Now from there you have your charcoals that come in a lot of kits. And obviously this guy is super black, and he is very minimal effort, taking over the entire page. Yay! Only problem is when you are using this guy, another reason to be careful how dark you get your graphites. Charcoal and graphite doesn't like to play together. So I can't cover up my charcoal with the graphite. He's still pretty much there. You're always going to see that shiny graphite always coming through your picture even though you covered it up. That's because they just don't like to play together. The graphite, pretty much think of it, by the time you get it that dark, it turns into kind of like a mirror finish. It's filled in all the pits of the paper, and it has created this nice slick surface that nothing else can just grab a hold of. And as you can see, the wonders, the beauty of playing with charcoal. And that's where sitting around and playing with this guy for hours on end while you're drawing will keep your hands cleaner. He's so useful. He's a wonderful thing. So that is the beginning of your drawing kit here with your pencils and whatnot. Now the next thing most people will see are these guys here, the sticks. That's what I've always referred to them as. You have your graphite stick, your lead stick, which I do believe that's all, that lead stick is what the Negro is, and your charcoal stick. Now obviously you can see mine are pretty broken. I don't treat these guys well, I'm a little rough. And they also come in your colors as well, but I see the white of this more often than I see the pencil white of this. So what you pretty much got here is the exact same thing as over here. You got your graphite guys here, you got a 4B, a 2B, a 6B. You got your Negros with, or lead, I think they are the same. You got your lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, again, your hardness scales, and then your charcoal, and I got a charcoal up there. The big benefit with this guy is it covers a much larger area, so if you're doing a background, don't do it cold like this, but if you're doing a background, it'll cover a larger area much faster. Now, depending on what brands you use, definitely test these guys out before you use them, because if you can see already in this guy has got some harder grains in him, where he is leaving these streaks, and if you could see this in person, you would see that these streaks are actually indented into the paper. So it would take a lot to hide that, because it's pretty much burnt wood compressed down, and there's just going to be harder bits in it, and then the entire thing, that's just the way it is, and you're going to get some of that. So knowing your brand and how whatever brand you like to work with works, make sure you know how it works before you start fiddle-farting too much with it. Otherwise, all the rules, same rules apply. Lots of fun to get yourself nice and dirty. You love getting dirt in your hands, it's great. Again, for very large pictures a good deal of the time. And a lot of people just really like more of a hands-on feeling. They are a lot of fun to play with, so don't count them out. So that covers the beginner's kits, most kits that you will find. You will find smaller versions of these kits out there, and you'll find much bigger and more elaborate ones. And you can also find one of my favorite drawing pencils, the Murado Black Warrior. Yeah. Unfortunately, he doesn't come in any of the scales, but I've always loved this pencil. It's always been my favorite. I could not tell you why. I think it's nostalgia more than anything. Let's see. Anybody else want to come out and talk? Ah, yes. All right. Now, a lot of people, a lot of people you will see out there, they will have mechanical pencils that they're drawing with. Mechanical pencils are great to a point, and depending on the job that you're trying to do or the techniques that you're trying to learn, mechanical pencils are very awesome. The only thing is they make a perfect hard line, but you can get some very tiny, fine, detailed lines in whatever it is that you're doing. The only thing is that you just can't soften it very easily, and even if you use your shaders, it's still, it's going to be a very sharp line. So those guys are great for cartooning, anime type things, very technical drawings that are very crisp. Maybe not so much for life drawings. So that is pretty much that. The only other thing I can think of is talking about paper. For the beginner, I always recommend computer paper. It's cheap, it's easily accessible, you can doodle wherever you want because everywhere has computer paper. Now, as far as the more expensive and fancy pants papers out there, they are fun to play with. Go try them out, see what other techniques there are out there with those papers. They're great. Like I said, the the colors here, especially when you add a white in there, it is awesome to use gray paper with, or any papers with any kind of natural colors. It's a lot of fun to just see because you don't have your whites already taken care of for you, and you got to create both your lightest lights and your blackest shadowing all on your own by yourself. There's no help with it, and really understanding your subject that way, you learn a lot. Even if you don't end up liking it, you're still going to learn a lot. You learned you didn't like it. This particular pad, it is just a cheap little pad for several classes that I do. It's great for the beginners, and I mean, it's pretty much computer paper size. It's easy to cover the whole page. Beginners aren't typically too intimidated by it, by the size. You can always get way bigger than my table that I currently have videoing on. The only other thing I can think of to tell you about the papers is that the more expensive papers, they do tend to be a lot thicker. So when you go into erase, and you're erasing pretty hardcore, yeah, you can see that paper starting to catch a little bit. Well, that happens. The thicker papers are going to be less likely to crinkle and wrinkle when you're doing that kind of thing. And if you do get a couple of times where it lifted like it just did, it's not going to be detrimental. With computer paper, it's going to be detrimental. I would have ripped this thing 3 different ways by now. Lovely, 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 lovely. Now how black that guy is, and now all I have to do is keep kneading this sucker, and he cleans himself. It's amazing. You wish your husbands came equipped with this kind of self-cleaning feature. It's awesome. Well, that is the end of my beginner's beginner drawing. Please stay tuned and share, like, subscribe. I do plan to do more of these videos and painting, acrylics, watercolors, and I do think maybe I'll even try some jewelry smithing. Please let me know maybe what you would like to learn how to draw. Are you having a hard time with hands? Are you having a hard time with feet? Are you having a hard time with the human figure? Is you having a hard time drawing your puppy dog at home? Whatever subjects, just let me know, and I'll try to prioritize certain videos over others. So let me know what you want to learn, and I will do my best to make sure that that happens. Otherwise, you all have a great day, and see you around.